All right, Nadim, I'm going to try to establish the facts and the backstory to this as best I can. So, effectively, there are these unlicensed sites. Some of them are simply licensed in other countries. Some of them are sites which, as far as I can tell, aren't licensed anywhere, or they're licensed in weird places which will license anybody. And in Italy, at least, I don't know about other countries, you are not allowed to access those sites. Some of those sites are invitation only, where they might go to, oh, look, here's a young footballer who we believe likes to bet. We'll invite him in. We'll give him a free credit of 100 grand or whatever, since we know he's good for it. And so this all began with an investigation by the police into these sites. As they're investigating these sites, obviously they speak to people, they speak to agents who place bets on behalf of other people, and one of them points out that Niccolò Fagioli, the Juventus midfielder, is involved in this. And so they go to Fagioli, who immediately says, yep, I was involved. I feel terrible. Apparently he's lost a lot of money. Some reports say 3 million. I don't believe that. I don't believe he has 3 million. But
well, you could lose 3 million, not have 3 million.
Which is the really scary thing, because then you're playing for Juventus and you're in the hole.
Yeah, and the quickest way to get out of the hole is to win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
That's what I've heard anyway.
he kind of throws himself at the mercy of the court, says he'll collaborate with everything. We don't know what punishment he's going to face from law enforcement, but in terms of sporting punishment, he basically negotiated a 7-month ban plus effectively 5 months suspended on top of that. And he admitted his guilt from the start. In the other two cases, I've mentioned Zaniolo before. I think his name just somehow turned up here. Maybe he was playing poker there, but if he was playing poker on an illegal site, and he's not, he might get a fine, but he's not going to face any sporting sanction if, as he says, he wasn't betting. The Tonali case is the interesting one, because this apparently has been going on for a while. What we're led to believe is that he hasn't made significant losses. Some people even suggest that he's actually made money, but that's neither here nor there. Mm-hmm. He has admitted to doing this for several years. He's admitted to betting on his own teams, both Milan and before that when he was at Brescia. No word on whether he's bet on Newcastle. Now he's generally either bet on his team to win, or he's bet in games that he wasn't involved in. So we're going to find out. This is all stuff that's kind of leaked from his deposition, on which his side have basically confirmed. I think this situation will probably see him. The talk is that he'll be banned for something 12 to 18 months.
Do you think that's fair?
It was really funny is when we talk about. First of all, I think you have to have strong bans if you're a professional footballer and you bet on football, and it's not. It's linked to the credibility of the sport.
Yep.
Obviously, if you bet on your team to lose when you're playing in a game, it should seem obvious, right? Then you lose faith in the sport. It has to do with but even if you're not betting on your own team, if you're betting on other teams, it's insider trading.
Yep.
You have access to information that the average punter wouldn't have. Mm-hmm. I think you have to have a ban. What is the right length of a ban? I think you have to take into account whether you turn yourself in. And clearly in Italy we have, for now at least, it looks as if they're taking a tougher stance than the FA did in the Ivan Toney case, which, these cases are similar in some ways, different in others. But the main difference is that Toney contested the charges at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I'm going by what was published in the written reasons about how the FA arrived at their 8-month punishment. He denied having a burner phone. He was unclear about having a second bank account, and then later he admitted to it. So if you don't from day one say, "Yeah, I'm guilty, boss," I will.
It's like a plea deal.
It is effectively a plea deal. So I think because of that, I think that's what Tonali's going to do, and he'll still get a heavier punishment. Most experts say he's going to get between 12 and 18 months, which is substantially longer than Ivan Toney, but it's a different country, it's different jurisdiction.
I think there's a discussion to be had about addiction, yeah. But then not everyone has the addiction before they start. And it's very, very clear in the rules when you are a professional footballer that you cannot bet on football anywhere. Like, it's very, very clear. They drill home that point. So from when you do it for the first time, you know that you've done something that you should not have done. And I think some of the remorse that some people show, like sometimes they'll say they didn't know and so on. Listen, that's what someone said. That's like a child. It's what you say when you know you've done something wrong, but you just don't want the trouble to be the same.
That's what Ivan Toney said.
Yeah, and it's disappointing for him because, as in for Tonali, it's disappointing for Newcastle, it's disappointing that this is going on. And, you know, some people make the argument, well, he's betting on himself to win, blah, blah, blah. I still think just any bet itself will affect the way that you perceive that game, especially when you've got a part to play within it. Because think about, say, a fan that bets on their team to win. How do you watch that game? Do you watch it in the same way you would do if you didn't have a bet on? Probably not. So imagine how you're on the field now, the frustration you might have with other people within the team. So I don't like it, but then I also think the way that sports is, especially football, there's so much gambling that happens within it, which gets promoted, gets put on the shirts, gets put in the programs, gets put on TV. This is the Sky Bet Championship. This is the Sky this. Make sure you bet on this, bet on that, bet on whatever. And I think they talk out both sides of their mouth because they're very forward in saying that people should bet as much as possible. And then unfortunately then you do get some people who are the players who have the money, who get targeted by some companies you've probably never heard of before. And it's that feeling of winning. They are obsessed with it. And not everyone does go down that avenue. And I think this is a really delicate subject because now, what do Newcastle do? If a player was out for 12 to 18 months with like a drug ban or something, they'd probably let them go. And that would come off a mistake, which they know is wrong as well. But because it's this and you could link it to addiction, do you keep him?
I think there's probably a financial reason why Newcastle would keep him, which is they just spent, 80 million euros on him.
Or could they not do something in his contract because this is like a significant breach?
Well, no. They could. I think. Again, I'm not a lawyer, and you know my thoughts on lawyers. But generally speaking, if a player is unavailable for 6 months or more, even if it's through injury, the club in most contracts, the club can cancel your contract.
Yeah.
So this is a very similar situation. But what I'm saying is Newcastle have spent 80 million on him. If he's out for a year, he'll come back. And he will still have value to them in their books because he's a younger player.
Yeah.
Now, if he were 35 years old and making a ton of money and not performing on the pitch,
throw him into the time.
I think that's what they. But it's I don't think I'm not saying this about it in a bad way. I think any club would generally act like that. But he's come out. He said he's had a problem. He submitted a psychiatric evaluation. Now they're going to see, which way this goes. I think you make a great point, but people know that it's illegal before they do the first one. And I appreciate the addiction thing, but there is that first step, right?
Yeah.
You can also go out and say, okay, but we've all done stuff, or most of us have done stuff that we know is illegal because we want to try it.
Yeah.
Right? So it slightly works, and then some of us get addicted and some of us don't, right? So it's a question of levels.
But most people, even if I've seen tons of people in my career and life within football who bet on anything and everything, but not football. There are a million other things for you to bet on. You could bet on like a horse race in Hungary or whatever. Like nobody cares, and that won't get you in trouble. But it's the moment you bring it into football, and when you bring it to the place that you know better than any other, like how did you arrive in that point? And how were there enough people saying, yeah, this is fine, for you to think that you can do that?
That's 100%. I'm 100% in agreement with you.